hope everyone enjoyed the clips, and now I'll be going through and explaining my build setup. So first of all, why do I choose to have 111 poise? And the reason is, as you can see from the data here, at exactly this amount of poise, your character will be able to withstand 2 light attacks from smaller weapons, or 1 light attack from a two-handed heavy weapon. So at this threshold, your character becomes much less vulnerable to staggers, and this will give you a huge advantage in PvP basically, since you'll be super tanky, and you also not be able to you also won't be staggered that much, so you'll be able to dish out a lot more exchanges favorably. And how do you exactly achieve this amount of poise? So for that, I'm using this armor setup, as you can see here, plus the Bullgoat Talisman. So this is pretty much needed because it's impossible to get more than 100 poise without this talisman. And so for my helmet, I'm using the Imhead Wolf. The reason I like this is because not only is it very heavy, it also gives you 2 endurance for wearing it, so it helps a bit with the weight management, which is definitely an issue on these really tanky builds. And for my chest and hands, I'm using the veteran set. You can obtain this from Commander Now Boss in Castle Soul. It's a bit endgame, might be hard for you to obtain on a low level, but you can always just transfer stuff from a higher level character over. And for my legs, I'm using the Fire Prelate Greaves. This can be farmed from the Fire Prelate enemy at this location, or at least this is where I farmed mine. The drop rate is pretty low, but there's only one enemy, and I think the drop rate is probably like about, I would say about 5 to 10%. Just be prepared for a potentially long farm for this. And for my talisman, this build does require 4 talisman pouches, so you have to defeat more gods for this build to work. The first one is Radagon soreseal. I mean, this generally I would say this talisman is quite trash at high levels. It's just not worth the damage taken increase. But at lower levels, the stats that it gives become way more valuable since you have a lot less stat points to spend. So I would definitely recommend this for like any build below level 50. It's really worth the trade-off. In fact, I think you are even tankier with this, cause I mean the vigor that you gain will just outweigh the damage taken increase. Next up is this erdtree favor +2. This might also be a bit troublesome to acquire if you are lower level. You have to defeat Malikath, but it's always you can just transfer from the higher level. Very solid talisman overall. I use it in pretty much all my builds. And next up is the Great Jar Arsenal. This increases your equipment load by a lot. I think it's like 19%, and it's pretty much needed if you want to run so much weight on a lower level. And lastly, of course, is the Bullgoat's Talisman to increase our poise. For your Flask, I'm pretty sure you can just run whatever you want. Personally, for invasions, I really like crimsonburst, because sometimes when I get damaged a bit, I don't really need a Flask to heal. Don't really need to waste a Flask. I can just get a bit of HP back with the HP restore, and of course green burst is very useful when you are fighting outnumbered. As for my weapon setup, so for this build setup, you will have 12.5 weight available for your weapons without going heavy load. I only use 12, and personally I really like the halberd plus rapier, or what I call it the health stock setup. I think it's really good for PvP, especially low level PvP. I mean, I just think the halberd and the rapier complement each other so much. You know, you use the halberd for like longer. It's basically your main attack. It has a very long range jab, good for roll catching, good for AoE, and the rapier is good for when people like come out right to your face and you can hit them very quickly. And this goes very well together with our high poise. Usually when you start spamming against each other, usually you will come out on top because you just have so much poise. I mean, nobody is going to have even close to this amount of poise at level 35. So this build does fully take advantage of that. For the Edge of War, it's pretty much completely up to you what you want to run. Really, even the affinity doesn't really matter. I just choose fire because fire is definitely the highest AR for this level. As you can see, I don't really have any offensive stats. You don't really need any offensive stats at this level for PvP because it just adds a negligible amount of damage. Uh, so I just choose to go fire. Lightning is also very good. And for the Edge of War, I just chose Flaming Strike. I mean, Flaming Strike is just so good for PvP, for invasions. It adds a massive like 90 AR, which is a lot for a low level. It adds a flat 90 AR to your main hand attack. And the Edge of War itself is also very good for like AoE, especially for turning and burning. Like, you know, like in a 1v3 invasion, a lot of people are just going to chase you, and it's very easy to just turn and burn them with this Edge of War. So that's why I really like this. Doesn't really matter what you put on the other weapon. I personally just chose thunderbolt because it's good for execute. I mean, like sometimes people are low, they run away, and I just thunderbolt them. And of course, you don't have to run this setup. As I said, you do have 12.5 weight of weapons to choose from, so you can pretty much choose any setup you want. Like I've tried double curved swords with a shield. I've tried a great sword. Really anything works. And last but not least, just remember to have make sure you try to get the boiled crab unlocked. This is a really good consumable. I like to eat this before fights. It basically gives you like a 20% physical damage mitigation, and I mean you are already so tanky. I mean, like after you eat this, you'll be super tanky. Like people do like what 5 to 10% of my health per attack, so you basically just be a walking tank. And I think that's what makes this build super broken for low level invasions. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Do leave a comment if you have any questions. Let me know if you guys want to see like more clips of this build in action, and I'll see you in the next video.